Hi everyone, welcome back to Winging It. I'm Rebecca from Feather Stitch House. We're in week 28, and if you've been watching the prompt over on Instagram, you'll know that this week we're having a party. We're going to do something a little bit different, so there's not a huge amount of embroidery this week. We're going to be focusing on fabrics. You'll only need tiny little scraps, squares just even as small as 2.5 centimetres or 1 inch, and you will definitely need an iron. The other thing that you might need is some scraps of Bondaweb, and if you don't have Bondaweb, then hemming tape would work an absolute treat. So if you've got some of that, that's great. If not, don't worry, it is possible to do this project without. So grab all your bits and pieces and let's get stitching. With the prompt party, I started thinking about the fact that we have a birthday in our house this week, and my first idea was just maybe making a birthday cake with some applique using Bondaweb, maybe doing something interesting in the background and stitching some sort of festive or celebratory message somewhere on the panel. We haven't done any words for quite a while. I thought there were quite a few opportunities here where we could use our chain stitch variations. We could do some lines or stripes in the background. We could use twisted chain stitch or crested chain stitch to make the icing on the cake and do some patterns there. And there's various ways we could use chain stitch to do the lettering, and we could even do a decorative plate, or we could do that through patterned fabric. My next idea was revisiting the balloons idea from last week, and I think I sketched it out better last week, but I did think about adding some streamers, or we could put some beads on for some confetti and make our balloons in a similar way to the umbrellas back in April. But again, I thought we've done something like this before, and it just wasn't inspiring me. The idea that I landed on was actually very simple. I thought we could just make some bunting, and we could use our chain stitch variations for string that the bunting is hanging from, and this could be a bit of a dealer's choice week where you could do this through Bondaweb. So you could cut some triangles and Bondaweb them on. You could make proper actual bunting by making backed triangles. They will be quite small, but if you're up for something intricate and fiddly, you could have a go at that. You could make them out of felt and maybe do an embroidered design on, so make them in a similar way to the butterfly wings from last week and have them sort of just joined on at the top, but actually just lifting up from the base felt. But I was inspired, I don't know if you've been watching the Sewing Bee over the last 10 weeks or so here in the UK, I was actually inspired by Magni's triangle border on her origami dress, and I wondered whether we could do some fabric folding, some fabric origami to make our bunting flags. So they might not look like traditional bunting, but I thought we could have a bit of a play and do a bit of folding. So this is what I'm going to work on. You of course could do any of the ideas that I've talked about or something completely different. I'm going to be working on this sort of sky blue felt it's sort of mottled, and it made me think about wispy cloudy sky, and I thought that would look really nice with bunting across it. And I've also gathered a bunch of threads, so most of these are the ones I used last week. I've got some normal sewing cotton, and I've got some pearl threads as well, just so that I've got plenty of things handy. And you might want some buttons or just nice beads or anything you like really if you want to embellish your bunting. So we're going to make origami bunting, and I'm going to show you what we're going to do on paper first of all. So I've got a 5 centimetre square here, and I'll show you in a second what different sizes of square look like on your panel. So this is 2 inches if you work in inches, or 5 centimetres square, and I've just cut out a piece of blue origami paper. And this is so simple. So first of all, we're going to fold our square in half down the middle like that, and then open it back out. And then we're going to take this bottom right corner and fold it up until the straight edge meets the middle, a bit like making a paper aeroplane, and fold there. And then we're going to bring this left bottom corner up to the centre to meet the right hand side. And then we're going to take this top edge and just turn it around, freeze, and we're going to fold it up to the centre as well and fold across, and that's it. That's all we do. So let me show you that again. So we're going to fold in half across the middle and fold, open it out, and then we're going to take bottom right up to the centre and fold, and then we're going to take bottom left up to the centre and fold, turn it around and take that bottom straight edge up to the centre as well to make that sort of shape. And what we do then is we slot them together. So we're going to just pull this flap back a little bit. So this is flag number 1 and this is flag number 2. So we're going to take this left hand point of flag number 2, slide it inside this flap here so that the outside left point meets the middle of flag number 1. Okay, so if I then add in another one, let's call it flag number 3. I open the flap of flag number 2 and I slide flag number 3 in until the outside left point meets the centre of flag number 2. And then when we turn it over, we end up with some bunting. Now, just as a little tip, if you keep going, you can actually make a crown out of this, and you just slot your last one into your first one and they will hold together. It won't do it with 3 because there's not enough. So this is with a 5 centimetre square, and if I just bring in my square of felt, you can see that that is actually quite big. But if fiddly things are not your bag, you might want to just make some bigger bunting like that, and it would still look really effective. If I had 2 rows of that overlapping each other, that would still look pretty cool, I think. This is a 2.5 centimetre, so the folding is a little bit trickier, but that's the sort of size they are. So you could get several in a row there. Let's just do a 3 centimetre one. So let me demonstrate again. So I'm going to fold it in half and open it out. Then I'm going to fold right corner up to the middle, left corner up to the middle, and then I'm going to fold, turn it round, and then fold bottom to the centre like that. So that's a 3 centimetre square. It's a bit of a happy medium. So that would work quite nicely as well. I think you could probably get 3 rows of that. So what you're going to need is a bunch of squares in the size that you would like to use. You could make them, I've just had a thought, you could make them smaller at the back. Let me get my 2.5 centimetre ones in. So you could have small ones at the back, slightly bigger ones in front. Oh, that looks fun. I like it. And then you could have maybe not 5 centimetre, but maybe 4 centimetre or 3.5 across the front. I think I'm going to do that. So I need some 2.5cm squares, some 3cm squares, and I think I'm going to go 3.5cm. So I'm just going to cut some of those, and then I'll come back and show you the next stage. So I've got my squares of fabric, and I'm just going to fold one in half. We're going to do this step by step, and I've worked out a little trick to make this a bit easier for us. So I'm just going to press that fold in place. You are going to need an iron nearby. And what I've got here is a tiny little square of Bondaweb that I'm just going to put in the middle. And the paper backing's off. It tends to fall off if you're working with very small pieces, but it's not a problem. So I'm just going to put that Bondaweb on loose, and then I'm going to do my folds up. So I'm going to fold up from the bottom so that my corners meet at the centre. And then I'm going to put, just holding that in place, I'm going to put my greaseproof paper just over that fold, right up to the edge of where the fold is. And I'm just going to press. And that tiny bit of Bondaweb, I don't want my iron to touch this other bit of Bondaweb that's loose. I'm just pressing over the greaseproof paper. That bit of Bondaweb is going to glue our pennant together. And then I've got a pennant that I made earlier, and I'm just going to position that in place. Fold over. Now I can get my iron in. Without the greaseproof paper, because all the Bondaweb's covered up, and just press, and a little bit of Bondaweb is going to hold our fabric where we want it to be. So that's my first two bits of bunting. If you don't have Bondaweb for this, you can use just hem tape that you can just get from the supermarket. It's exactly the same stuff, it just doesn't have the paper backing. So hemming tape would work perfectly well for this. So fold my crease down the centre, Bondaweb in the middle, fold in my corners, paper over the join, and just press up to the edge of the paper. There we go. I'm just going to press that point closed, bring my flags back in, fold the top over, and press the flap down. Oh, how lovely is that? I'll just do it one more time. Fold my square in half and press. Bondaweb in the centre. Fold up my point. Press my point closed. Bring in my other flags, fold the flap over, and press. There we go, so that's my first row of bunting, and I can trim these bits off to fit as and when I need to. So I want to make the other 2 strips of bunting and then we'll come back and look at our stitching. Okay, so I've got my 3 strips of bunting that I'm going to put on here, and I'm just going to go over and trim any loose threads because they're going to just get in my way. So what I'm going to do now is just pin my bunting in place. So I just want to think about the angles I want to create. I'm just going to lay it on first, and I'm starting at the back and coming forward to the front. I'm just going to use my old aperture trick just to see whether I'm happy. I think I prefer it going that way, so I'm just going to pin those in place. My problem with wonder clips while I'm filming is they rattle on the table and create problems. So I've just got some ordinary machine cotton and I'm just going to tack these in place. So I'm going to start just inside my border because I don't want to accidentally cut off these tacking stitches when I come to trim. We're working through quite a few layers here, so make sure you've got a nice sharp needle. These tacking stitches you can take out if you want to once you've done your embroidery. Before I embroider, I'm just going to trim these edges. So what I'm doing here is lining my scissor blades up with my border line and just snipping just to trim to the edge. And so now really all that's left for me to do is add my lines at the top. So I'm going to use 2 strands. This is a 6-strand embroidery thread, and I really like the chain stitch back stitch combination. It's probably the easiest one. Just want to draw a line that I'm going to work along. Probably not a good idea to use blue on blue. So I'm going to start with my chain stitch back stitch combination. So I'm going to start by doing a line of chain stitches. And I think I'm going to go back through it with a lighter blue. So if you remember, we come up in the very centre of the 2nd stitch in our chain and go back through the 1st, up through the 3rd and back through the 2nd. And work like that all the way down. So there's our finished panel for this week. Quite simple really, but I think that just looks really cute. If I bring in my aperture, you'll be able to see better. The effect. I think that's really lovely. I love the fact that it sits off the surface. And if we bring in our butterfly, it's all looking quite 3-dimensional this month. I think they look really nice together. So, hope you've enjoyed that. Do share your creations at #FSHWingingIt, and just so that we can see all of these pieces together, you can also add #FSHWingingIt28. If you've enjoyed this one where we've used some fabrics and you'd like another project that's similar, click on this link down here, and I'll put a link up here to a video that's best for you. If you've enjoyed this and would like to subscribe, just click on the Feather Stitch House logo down here, and that will make it really easy for you. So happy crafting, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!